Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to our program on Kardec Radio. And now, here's our host, Dr. Vanessa Anzalone.
Welcome, dear listener, to Kardec Radio. We're here live from the Chantilly, Virginia studios at Kardec Radio. And it's a joy for us to be here once again with you. By the way, Kardec Radio has listeners in more than 100 countries around the world. And we have programs, new programs, 7 days a week. Hosts from around the world, editors from around the world, all volunteers. Nobody's paid from the coordinator position to the editors. Nobody's paid. And this is all from the bottom of all of our hearts. And I'm saying this because people have been asking, I know you want to make a donation, you can, because we are not paid, but we have to pay for the resources we use to stream Kardec Radio to you. And it's always welcome. Just go to kardecradio.com, and there is a donation button there. Feel free to do so if you are thinking of, making one of the best uses of your money. And it is because, the stories on the behind the scene of Kardec Radio are amazing. How many lives have been uplifted by the programs at Kardec Radio. And that's why we say Kardec Radio is here to nourish your soul, to nourish all of our souls. Talking about nourishment of the soul, we are going to talk today about karma, reincarnation, and how oftentimes it can be quite difficult. And we are honored to have here with us, I say it could be doctor because she knows so much. She is a doctor, Joanne DiMaggio. She's talking to us from Charlottesville, Virginia, kind of close to us, a few hours away. In Charlottesville, which is the home of Monticello, Thomas Jefferson's home. Amazing. A place you can't miss before you discarnate. If you are in the United States, it's a must. It's one of the most important founding fathers, Thomas Jefferson, to whom we owe a great deal for everything he's done and continues to be doing in the afterlife too. And you can also visit Joanne then. Joanne DiMaggio is an inspired writer, lecturer, and teacher. She has been actively involved with Edgar Case's Association for Research and Enlightenment, ARE, in Virginia Beach since 1987. She earned her master's in transpersonal studies degree and her spiritual mentor certification through Atlantic University. Joanne is a graduate of the Eastern Institute of Hypnotherapy and a member of the National Association of Transpersonal Hypnotherapists. She has been professionally pursuing past life research and therapy for nearly 30 years and has been a guest speaker at several ARE conferences in Virginia Beach and for ARE audiences throughout Virginia, as well as in Chicago, Milwaukee, and Bethesda, Maryland. She also has spoken at the Rhine Institute and for the International Association for Near-Death Studies. Her latest book, which we're going to discuss today, Karma Can Be a Real Pain, Past Lives Clues to Current Life Maladies, was just published this past September 2016. Her other books include Soul Writing, Conversing with Your Higher Self, and its sequel, Your Soul Remembers, Accessing Your Past Lives Through Soul Writing. Joanne lives outside of Charlottesville, Virginia, and maintains an office at the Unity Holistic Healing Center, a service of Unity of Charlottesville, where she continues her research. It's amazing, and I know if you want to know more about her, the work, the services she provides, go to www.joannedimaggio.com. Joannedimaggio.com. Okay, we'll repeat it throughout the program, but if you have any question, let us know. Well, I can't forget to share with you that the Long Island Spiritist Society is going to sponsor a beautiful event on suicide prevention. It's their annual suicide prevention seminar. If you go to the website lispiritistdoctrine.net, you get to know information about this year's program, which is going to happen at Stony Brook University, okay, on November 19th. They have a symbolic ticket for you as you registered for the program. It's the fourth annual workshop on suicide prevention, November 19th from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. 6 speakers, including ourselves, are going to be there. It's going to happen at Stony Brook University. And to register, you go to lispiritistdoctrine.net. Okay? Many good things are happening around the world. I know many difficult ones as well. But the world is progressing. And you know, it's interesting because when Allan Kardec asked the illuminated spirits through the mediums of the time, what is the purpose of reincarnation? My friends, we need to know, because if we are here, there's a purpose. We need to know so we accomplish it. And they answered, we are here, you're here to make amends and to progress. Otherwise, what would be God's justice? Isn't that interesting? We have opportunities to come again as many times as needed to progress. I feel so good when I think of myself as someone who progresses and never regresses, somebody who can make difficult decisions today, but one day I will learn my way and I will unfold myself to a better version of me. I love it. Do you think only cell phones get better? Do you think only laptops and computers are entitled to new, better versions? No. They come from us, from the intelligence of humans. So, no wonder we progress as well. Look around. Compare today to the caveman time. We have changed. I know some are still there emotionally, but as the collective, we can tell we are progressing. But still, life can be difficult. Life can be filled with challenges, physical, mental illnesses. Can they be the result of previous life's choices, what we call action and reaction, karma? Can it be? If that is so, how can we find out the origin, as says Dr. DiMaggio, for these chronic conditions in our lives? She has in this book, Karma Can Be Real Pain, 23 cases she studied, treated, to illustrate how one life ties so well into another one. Our lives are not separated apart. Right now we're making choices that are going to influence the next ones. So how can we understand more about this current life and find solutions once we do this inner journey? I think one of the most beautiful things of this book is that it provides to us more tools for inner knowledge, inner empowerment, and thus we live better. So let me just stream to you, before I open the line to talk to Joanne DiMaggio, a message of joy, okay? Because we're going to talk about difficult things, but the goal is to achieve this ultimate joy, one way or another, one day or another, sooner or later, joy. And if you want the CD that contains this message, just go to the website of the Spiritist Society of Baltimore, ssbaltimore.org.
Joy
Joy is the song of the hours when God caresses your passage through the world. Everywhere flowers bloom as smiles of nature, and the wind combs the field's hair with resting music. The water from the fountain is liquefied care in earth's heart, and the small golden grain of sand is a message of joy from the ground. Do not allow, therefore, that your difficulty transforms itself into numbing sadness for others. Even if everything appears to conspire against the happiness that you await, lift your eyes to the smiling face of life that envelops you, and bolster joy wherever you go. Bless and serve always, even among tears. The rose, although subjugated by thorns, still offers its perfume, and sunrise awaits generously for the night to finish in order to renew itself. Daily, in a party of love and light.
Dear listener, we had a technical issue here. We are not sure exactly what happened, but we are rejoicing here with the opportunity of talking to Joanne DiMaggio about her latest book, Karma Can Be Real Pain, and her actual experience about how she's helping others untie the knots that they've created themselves since previous lives. How can previous lives be so impactant in our current lives? Thank you so much, Joanne, for being with us at Kardec Radio today. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks, Vanessa. I'm really happy to be with you.
Thank you. You know, Joanne, many people, when they talk about many lives, they are misguided about how empowering it can be to live life after life and progressing. But some of them are probably puzzled about the effects of one life to the next. Many people think linearly. If you kill somebody, next life somebody's going to kill you. If you do this, the same is going to happen to you. Not necessarily, can be a little bit more complex, but as you said in your subtitle, Past Life Clues to Current Life Melodies, we can find clues to understand why we're experiencing difficulties in the current life. So, can you tell us more about how important it is to do this inner observation, to do this inner work, to find ourselves out of the chronic conditions we've created?
Well, we're the sum total of everything that we have experienced since we came into physical being, because we're basically spiritual beings having a human experience. So if we accept that premise and look at us as a whole, we can see that there were incidences that happened to us in previous lifetimes. Maybe something that we did to someone or something someone did to us. It could be an illness, a trauma of some sort, a wound, whatever, that we've decided that we were going to work on in this lifetime. And so we've brought that with us. And it will emerge in many different ways. And in my particular study for this last book, it emerged as a physical condition. So people who had experienced pain, and it was not only physical, but it was also emotional, mental. Some people came with drug and alcohol issues. It was a really large variety of conditions that people were thinking to themselves, I've tried just about everything. I don't understand this. I don't understand why I can't, why this happened to me. And so they came looking for another way of viewing it, and that's what the project was about, to see if, in fact, the condition that they were dealing with in the here and now actually it originated in another lifetime. And in going back to that lifetime, the goal, of course, was to heal the condition, and that was what the research project was all about.
Mm-hmm. It's so interesting because you start the book with your chapters, like chapter 1, and the titles, they are so different because usually people write books about previous lives experience in a more poetic way, but you're more like medical. You go straight to the conditions, like even the titles of the books. Like, for example, chapter 1, arthritis and joint disease. Chapter 2, foot, leg, and back pain. And from there on, you talk about the condition, you talk about cases that illustrate, that you've treated, that you've become acquainted with and researched upon. And you also include Edgar Case's, some of his readings too, right?
Right. I've been a longtime student of Edgar Cayce. He did 14,000 readings in his lifetime. The majority of those were for physical conditions. They were called the health readings. He did about 2,000 life readings, and in the life readings is where he would connect a previous lifetime to a condition that a person had in this life. For instance, he told one man, a blind man, that he was blind in this life because he had blinded his enemies with hot pokers in a previous life. Or a woman who was dealing with obesity, he said that she had made fun of people who were overweight in a previous life, and so now she was experiencing it for herself. So I did include the Cayce readings. If you go to the ARE, go into their wonderful library in Virginia Beach, they still have the card file, the old-fashioned card file, which I found so helpful. And I saw that under physical karma, he had readings from acne to venereal disease. It was very fascinating. So I pulled all that information together, combined it with the information of others in the field. Dr. Norm Shealy had a great influence on me. I happened to meet him at a medical intuition conference in Virginia Beach, and one of the first things he said when he appeared before the group was that he believed that all illness was past life related. Now here's a medical doctor coming out and saying that, and that really astounded me. I am not a doctor, by the way. I know. I like
but
to
you're
think of
expert
myself
enough
as
to be a
spiritual
doctor.
scientist. Yeah, but so I love doing research projects because I love to let people tell their own story rather than me saying, this is definitely from a past life and this is what you need to do about it. I let them tell their own story, which is why I invited volunteers to come in. I did 50 regressions on people with various chronic conditions, and of course only used 23 in the book, but there were 50 of them, and it included a body scan and the regression itself, and then the soul writing. And then I followed up 6 to 8 weeks later to see if the condition had improved, if it had healed completely, if it stayed the same, or even if it got worse. So I wanted some statistical data in the book as well, just to show the various ways that this sort of therapy worked.
It's so interesting. Let me give the listener a feeling. First, you quote, excuse me, Edgar Cayce when he states, there are in truth no incurable conditions. And I picked at first a chapter that has like back pain. It's hard to find somebody who doesn't experience back pain unless they're children. And
right.
you talk about Emma's case. She has sciatica. Would you like just to illustrate a little bit about this case of Emma in
Sure,
the book?
she is actually one of my favorite of everybody that I discuss. Emma is a 65-year-old healthcare provider, and she came in complaining of sciatica-type symptoms. She regressed to the 18th century in France as Marie, a 20-year-old prima ballerina. The interesting thing about Emma is when she was doing this entire regression, she did it with a French accent. And she was born and raised in this country, so this was not her normal way of speaking, but she spoke in this French accent the whole time because she was, in fact, Marie again. I was talking to Emma's past life aspect, and Marie spoke French, and she was even struggling to find the English words that she wanted to use to describe her life to me. So that was a first for me to have somebody speaking in a different dialect during the course of the regression. In any event, the significant event in that lifetime, I always ask my volunteers or clients to ask their soul to scan that life and to pick out the one thing that happened that is the cause of what they're dealing with now. Well, Emma said that Marie had a rival, a younger girl, ballerina. She was jealous of her. She was fearful she was going to take her place. So she orchestrated it so that the girl would trip in the darkness of the backstage. She put a broom out, so she tripped, and the girl fell and broke her leg, and thus ending her dancing career and also ending the worry that Marie had that she'd take her place. Marie had no remorse for doing this. This was simply just the way it was. To eliminate your competition, this was perfectly acceptable. So she comes back into this life with the sciatica at the exact same location that she had injured that girl. So now she's experiencing the pain herself of what she caused somebody else. But on top of that, the girl that was the ballerina that she had caused to fall came back as her daughter in this life. So that now she's dealing with the karma on two levels. She's dealing with it on the physical level, and she's dealing with it on the emotional level, in dealing with a daughter who has shown her nothing but rejection. They had a very difficult relationship in this lifetime, and Emma never understood why. But now seeing that this is the reincarnation of that girl that she maimed, she could well understand it. And that both of those understandings led to a healing on Emma's part.
Wow. So how did she deal with that new knowledge that the reincarnation of that girl was right here in front of her as her daughter? Was it easy for her, or you had to work with her throughout sessions too?
I didn't work with her beyond that one session, and we did include a lot of forgiveness work. I did that with everybody, to forgive themselves, to forgive somebody else. Oftentimes when you do a regression and you see something, first of all, I have to tell you she was absolutely mortified, because in this life she's the complete opposite. She's a very kind, loving, compassionate person, and the thought that she had done something like that in a previous life was very, very difficult for her to accept. But it created an understanding on her part. She understood better why her daughter was reacting to her the way she was, and having that knowledge alone enabled her to shift in her perspective and her understanding of her relationship with her daughter, so that it wasn't, while it was still painful and she knew they had a lot of work to do, she was able to have a lot more compassion for her daughter, a lot more patience, and understanding what she needed to do to help heal their relationship. And the last I heard, they were working on that, and I'm sure she's made a lot of progress in that regard.
Yeah, and but Joanne, for those who are listening to us, we have a comment to make, because some people approach us and they say, I just want to know my previous life for knowing. But you're saying that you would use the type of regression therapy for pathological issues, for therapeutic issues, not just for curiosity, right?
Yeah, if somebody calls me and says they would like a regression, I always ask them why. And if they say that it's for entertainment purposes, I do not see them, because this is sacred work, and it is not meant for entertainment purposes. It's meant for growth. It's meant for spiritual growth and for healing. And So I always do a little bit of vetting with my clients before I see them to make sure that they're serious about why they're coming for the session.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we really think that's the way to go too, and we're saying this because listeners may be asking this question about, whether or not we can simply gravitate to that therapy, and we can't. We're not vouching for it unless you need it, dear listener. Now, in all the cases you describe in the book, there is a part that is quite interesting when you talk about the person's soul writing. What is it?
Soul writing is a written form of meditation. So if you think of prayer as you talking to God or your source or your creator or whoever you believe in, and then meditation is that source talking back to you. Soul writing is you taking the notes and you writing down what you're receiving. So it is exactly like meditation, except it's meditation in writing, and that enables you to get much deeper. You can ask your soul any question, ask your source any question you want, and you'll get an answer in writing. So while they're still in an altered state of consciousness from the regression, I bring them up almost fully back to full consciousness, not quite. I put a pen in their hand and a pad of paper on their lap, and I say to them, now ask your soul if there's anything else it could provide for you that you did not get in the regression, but you could get it on paper. And that is where many of the aha moments happen. They might get the backstory of what was really going on, because you can't cover an entire lifetime in the course of an hour and a half. So they may have some major questions about that did not get answered. And while they're doing the writing, I'm connecting as well to my source, and I'm asking, is there anything I can get to share with so-and-so to help them understand? And it's very, very powerful. In the book, I did include that. Sometimes their soul writing didn't say much, and so then I wouldn't include their writing, but I might include mine. Or there were occasions when I would include just theirs and not mine, or where I put both of them in, because that sort of filled in the blanks. And soul writing is something that you can do not just for past life work. To me, it's like a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week phone home card to your divine source, where you can go in and ask for guidance, divine guidance on any subject, and get it in writing. So it's a very helpful tool.
Okay, and for those who are listening to us, how much can we generalize the cases you've provided, the relationship between the current chronic condition and previous lives choices? How much can they see themselves there and use? Do you think it's broad to the conditions you're describing here?
Well, I think it gets very specific, actually. One of the questions that at the end of the regression session, I ask them to look at the parallels between their two lifetimes. Look at what's going on in your life now and look at what you just described to me. And do you see any similarities? Same thing with people. Are there any people from that previous lifetime that are in your life now, knowing full well that they may have changed roles, they may have changed sexes, but we travel in a soul family or a pod, and we incarnate over and over again with each other to assist each other. And so I do ask that question to draw that correlation. Sometimes they don't see it as clearly as I do, but I don't spoon feed them with the information. I want them to come to the conclusion on their own. And again, that is sometimes where the soul writing comes in, because then they're able to understand what happened a little bit better and see how how what they did in the past, or what was done to them in the past, was so important and so significant that it made an imprint on their soul, and they brought it in with them in this life to work on. And it's not, as you said earlier, it's not linear. I had someone who had a case of asthma. He's not in this book. He's in my previous book, Your Soul Remembers. He had the asthma from the year 79 AD. Actually, he suffocated in Pompeii during the when Mount Vesuvius erupted. And he has asthma, so that happens in 79 AD. He's dealing with it in 2011. So, he's had many lifetimes in between. But for whatever reason, his soul decided this was the time and this was the place in which this old wound was going to resurface so that he could work on that, resolve that issue, and move on.
That's amazing. And, I find it very interesting that you have this chapter at the end of the book using soul writing for past life information. I think the way you guide the reader to this work with the self, and I say this because kind of it cuts the middleman, and I think it's very empowering. And I say this because in the churches, in general, we always feel like dependent on the pastor, the priest, somebody else. When we become, we take like spiritism, spiritualism, many people become dependent on the mediums, but they shouldn't. And Kardec says, the thing that you do here, it's so convergent, saying we need to do this work directly, ourselves and God. It's like bringing in the information, which really helps with inner knowledge. I think it's very, very interesting how you set up the guidelines, like 1, find a sacred place, 2, set the stage, 3, same time, same place. And, this advice to consistency and everything else that you described to the listener. I'm not going to read it throughout here. Joanne, I know you have a lot to share with us, but I need to give a short break. When we come back, one of the questions we have from the listener, somebody who is going to listen to this on demand and couldn't be here with us but sent it by email, converges to one of the chapters you wrote on diabetes. Okay? Okay, so right after this message. Can you hear me, Joanne?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so we're back. We're experiencing some glitches here. I don't know what it is, but we'll find out. Meanwhile, let us go back to where we stopped. We're talking about how previous lives can affect the current life. And There is one question by a listener. Thank you so much. We're not going to disclose the name, but it's about how previous lives can affect, for example, the condition of diabetes. And you dedicate a chapter to it. What would you say in that regard, Joanne, according to your research and experience?
Well, that was really an interesting chapter because I was expecting that there would be some correlation with, overdose of sugar intake or something, but it wasn't. The two women that I had in that chapter, one was Sandra, a retired community college professor, and she went back to a lifetime in which she was a Native American boy who became a shaman, but she talked a lot about using peyote to achieve her or his attachment to spirit, and then she talked about how she feels like she's in a fog in this life, that she's walking around and not really being able to see clearly. And she came to the conclusion that smoke that she had inhaled as that young Native American boy who later became a shaman, it was still in her system. And she said that was making her lethargic and causing issues with her blood sugar. So she felt that she needed to clear her system of past emotions and experiences in order to once that smoke got cleared out, she thought that her diabetes would be under control. So that was an unusual case to think that somebody who had inhaled a great deal of this smoke in a previous life was saying that was causing her to be lethargic and caused issues with her blood sugar. And the other one was Janet, a 54-year-old marketing professional. She went back to a life in 1650 in Italy. And she said that throughout that whole session, she said that there was no sweetness in that life. She kept talking about how she had a husband that she overworked. She had no sympathy for him, and she made the connection that was similar to the relationship she had with her now deceased fiancé. So she talked a lot. She just kept using that phrase, a lack of sweetness in her life. She said she needed to learn appreciation of simple things. Then she said that had led to chronic fatigue, and the chronic fatigue led to the diabetes. So here we have two cases of symptoms in which both of the volunteers who were undergoing the regression were tying in something that I never would have thought would manifest as a diabetic condition, in the next lifetime. But they both did, and for both of them, said that their condition improved after they had this revelation. So I'm continually amazed and fascinated by the results of some of these case studies.
Yeah, it's really incredible. So it's about. So what would be the mechanism, if you could, according to your research, once people, because we are born with the blessing of not knowing, as we say in the Gospel according to Spiritism, the forgetfulness of the past. It's a blessing, because if we knew it, we probably wouldn't be able to overcome and make choices that are healthy. But there are moments in which we need to know, and that awareness changes everything. How can you explain that, Joanne?
I think that just, as you said, just the awareness of it will change your perspective, and that in and of itself would be healing. I had one woman who was had night terrors. She's a 71-year-old retired psychiatric nurse, and she came to me at the end of my study. Actually, her husband called me, and he had heard about the study, and he said, would you include my wife? And I was actually finished at that point, and I was already starting to put the book together. But he was so sincere in his desire to help his wife, and I said, okay, have her come in. Well, her name was Irene. She went back to she was having night terrors, so she's having nightmares every every other night practically, and they were shaking her to her core. She saw herself being tortured, being sexually abused. She saw herself hungry, cold, watched the abuse of children around her. So she thought for certain that she was seeing a lifetime in a German concentration camp in World War II. So I said to her, well, don't be surprised if you don't go there. And because many times people come in with a preconceived notion of where this is coming from, and then when they actually do the regression, they find out that that's not the case at all. Well, she went back to a life in the early 20th century in England. Her name was Mary. And when she was a child, she was experiencing the same identical symptoms as you would if she had been in a concentration camp. She was beaten, she was in servitude, she was tortured, she had sexual abuse. Her mother sold her at 14 to a man who operated a prostitution ring. So we went through that entire lifetime, and she saw that this is actually where this was coming from. So we did some forgiveness work, let that go, and when I checked in with her a few weeks later, she said that she had not had another nightmare since our session. And I saw the two of them at my book launch at Unity a few weeks ago, and the husband came up to me, and he took my hand, and he had tears in his eyes. And I don't mean to be melodramatic, but it really moved me. He said, thank you for helping my wife. She doesn't have those horrible dreams anymore. She could sleep peacefully at night. So in her case, it was simply knowing where this came from that it enabled it to heal. Same thing with the asthma victim I told you about earlier. He was in his soul writing that he wrote the sentence, asthma the result of seared lungs. When he made the connection that the asthma was the reminder of the lifetime that he had in Pompeii, the condition he was 68 years old at the time. Can you imagine you're dealing with this all those years, and then you find out where it came from and it disappears? Now, that didn't happen with everyone. I don't want your listeners to think that it's a magic pill. But it did happen. Of the 23 in my book, 4 of those people did have a complete healing. So it was a very, very powerful tool for them of self-understanding. And I think that was part of the healing process.
Yeah, it's very interesting. For those who are listening to us, this is really something to think about. And for those who are not feeling like I want to go full spectrum with past life regression, do you think, because Allan Kardec says that if we observe our tendencies, we can get clues about our previous life and adjust ourselves. Would you agree with that, Joanne?
Absolutely. You don't need to do it for a specific chronic condition. That's just one of the many elements that are in play here. There are people who have relationship issues over and over again that could be stemming from a previous lifetime. There are people that have financial problems that could be stemmed from a past life. Career issues. It covers every aspect of our being. Now, you don't work on all of that at once. I think Edgar Cayce, when he would do a life reading, the most he would give a person were 4 previous lives, because he said you can't possibly work on more than that. You would be on massive overload, and then you wouldn't be living your life in the here and now, and that's really what this is about. So for those who want to find out about who they really are, the journey of their soul over centuries, what they've experienced. And karma, is not always a bad thing. Karma can be something very positive because it could be a talent or ability that you acquired in a previous life that you're pulling on now. So, people who are musicians or writers or who are really good with numbers, and they wonder, nobody in my family has that ability. Where in the world is this coming from? Could very well come from a previous lifetime. So it's just all about knowing who you are, body, mind, and spirit on the deepest possible level.
So. Each heart is like a parcel of spiritual land. Many will be buried by the stones of prejudice at the side of others who got entangled by the thorns of illusion, needing enormous time to break free. However, think about the good land not in use. This is where elements that generate inertia are found. Abandoned lands, orphaned lands, creatures who are anxious for the fertilizer of faith, souls who beg for a modest garden of hope and comfort. These troubled, forgotten lands will often look for you. Your vision will open up through the fatigue of the parents where pain manifests, tortures, and consumes, through the disillusionment of your sad fellows who carry in their hearts the ashes of their own dreams, through the problems of the child who is consumed by revolt, through the trials of your brothers and sisters who cry smiling so that you may not see the debris of their resentment. If you can already hear the sublime sower proclaiming, "Sow, sow," you know that charity is the sun that sweeps the shadows. You bring within you the gift to sprinkle comfort. You can pronounce the blessed word. You can pour what is left from the purse, transforming the coin in a prayer of joy. You have the strong arm which lifts up the fallen. Your fingers are capable of mending the strings broken by suffering in others' hearts, attuning them to the sound of the fraternal music. You have the privilege of sharing clothes you no longer need with those less fortunate. Nothing hinders you from helping the sick. Nobody prevents you from building in the road the good for those who are here and for those who are to come. Do not deter yourself in the emptiness of the shadows. Plant truth and light, joy and goodness. If you perceive the voice of the sublime sower, you will hear him at each step of the way, confidently saying closer to your ears, "Work while you can, and sow."
Dear listener and Joanne, Blog Talk Radio here had some issues, so we hope you were listening to Joanne when the system flipped. So Joanne, you were talking about the positive side of previous life choices, the action and reaction. It's not all that bad. So we now also need to pay attention to the progress we have made from previous lives to today, like talents, like prodigies, etc. Correct? Geniuses.
Right. If you have look at the things in your life that you really resonate to, the things that come easy to you, the things that you are drawn to. Many times that is because that was a part of who you were before. And I think in understanding that, then you really can get a sense of the soul's journey. You get a sense that you're continuing. You know, you may have changed bodies, but your soul is the same. It's been the same from day one. And you're just experiencing all the ways of life, all the experiences that you can on this beautiful planet, and learning as you go, and growing as you go until the time comes when you have passed all of your classes here on the Earth School, and then you go back to a spirit from whence you came. And there are some people who have done that, but most of us are repeating. We're repeat students and working on various aspects of our past lives in each subsequent lifetime. So it's a very, very valuable tool for self-understanding and healing.
All right. So for those who are listening to us, Joanne, I know they can go to your website, joannedimaggio.com. What would you like to share with them, especially to those who are listening to us either live or on demand and are undergoing, when they are at these crossroads of life, conflicts, they don't know what to do, they think they're hopeless. Maybe nothing is going to help them in either their relationships or their chronic illnesses. what would you like to say to them?
I would say to them that most of your pain is coming from not knowing, from not understanding, from not seeing the full picture. And, you may be just stuck in one element of it, stuck in the pain of it or the anguish of it. If you want to have a regression, you can find a reputable regression therapist in your area. If not, you don't need to. You can actually use the soul writing. That's what my second book, Your Soul Remembers, was all about, was how to use soul writing alone to find out more about your past lives. You're not alone. You have guidance. You have a guidance from above, divine guidance that you can access anytime you want. It just takes the time and the commitment to do so, and I guarantee you that you'll get an answer, and that answer will free you from whatever your situation may be. It'll put you on the right path. It'll point you in a different direction and change your perspective. And then when your attitude changes, then you watch how everything else around you will change as well.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much, Joanne, for your time, for the amazing book, the amazing works, and for being connected to us. We hope to have you more often here at Kardec Radio. Okay?
My pleasure. Thank you very much, Vanessa.
Thank you. So, dear listener, you see, no wonder Allan Kardec said the universality of the Spiritist ideas. It's everywhere, and it's a teamwork effort around the world. Joanne DiMaggio is doing fantastic work, and just corroborated, let me say in a scientific way, the evidence that Kardec has been bringing to us in all of his books. So it's an opportunity for us to think about ourselves as millennial spirits, souls that have had previous lives. So let us study ourselves and understand more. So we are going to feel more attuned with our own essence, our divine essence, and learn that we can refine it. We can work upon it. We are not said and done. Okay? So right now we're going to wrap up the program with a prayer. And you're invited to pray with us, because prayer is a way for us that we can connect with God consciously, and as Kardec says, either ask or express gratitude, or also express, and it could be all one and the same prayer or worship God. It's very important we have that reverence inside of us, because we are not self-made. We're co-creators, and as co-creators, we're better off when we connect. Let us pray. Dear Mother, Father God, we are rejoicing at this very moment with the opportunity of being here in this reincarnation. What a joy to learn, to progress, and to feel interconnected with everyone in our lives. We pray that everyone on the earth who is experiencing extreme anguishes, either from physical or mental, spiritual conditions, may they feel a helping hand touching them, embracing them, and transmitting healing and new hope. May they never give up. May we feel them being embraced and freeing themselves of the perception that they are alone. May they experience relief and the joy of living. As we breathe the air you provide to us, we acknowledge your greatness and your supreme love. Thank you for all the masters and the teachers, and especially for the Christ who has been teaching us about the only power in your universe, love. And so be it. Dear listener, we are very grateful that our dear Joanne DiMaggio was here with us. And we're very grateful to all of you. If any of you contacted through the chat room, we apologize, but Blog Talk Radio is experiencing some form of a technical glitch. We're not able to see you through there. For those who had questions and couldn't be answered because of our system that was interrupted, we apologize, but feel free to write to us at kardecradio@gmail.com to send your questions, and we may answer in the program to come in a week. Meanwhile, don't forget, we have programs 7 days a week. You can access it on the podcast after the programs at iTunes or Blog Talk Radio live every time we have a program. If you want to see the schedule, go to kardecradio.com, and we are always here giving you a hand, sharing the nourishment that nourishes our souls too. Many blessings.
Thank you for listening to Kardec Radio, broadcasting live every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Email us and share your comments at www.kardecradio.com. Until next time, we wish you many blessings.